I want to give my initial impressions from Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. I've played it for about 7 or 8 hours so far, and I've gotten to the bike in the desert part. And you know what? Up to this point, the game was really fun. Like I was having a great time with it. And then this part happened, and it just completely tanked the experience. And I'm hopeful that it goes back to being like Metroid once I'm past whatever section this is. But my greater concern is that the desert is the the mainland that connects to all the world, that it forces you to utilize this to connect to the hub. I said on X a couple hours in, initial thoughts. It's not bad. Feels very Metroid Prime-y. Music is incredible already. Action sequences are fun. But the oh my god, Samus meme is everywhere. They really overdid the hey, look, she's famous angle in the military. I get what they were going for, but it just doesn't click for me. Also, that yellow paint Miles dude, oof, he is Jar Jar Binks to behold. The dialogue is cringe as fuck, and the writing is extremely rough. I won't say it ruins the experience yet, but it sure isn't helping. Also, I haven't gotten the bike yet. I hear that's when it really tanks the pacing and fun of the game. We shall see. And that was going into it. That was my greatest concern. I'm like, how much? Maybe people are overblowing how bad this part is. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. I like it functions like a bike and it drives around and it feels cool. But in the context of a Metroid game, I was playing through it. I even said to the chat, I'm like, this feels like a different game. I felt like I was playing F-Zero. And not in a good way, by the way. Because it's like it totally jarring the experience, taking you out of the game. I said, oh my God, the game nosedives at the motorcycle section. Not that it's not fun, more so, it just doesn't feel like a Metroid game. And I want to be clear about that. It's fun to drive around on a motorcycle, but it doesn't make sense. It feels like it's tacked on to make the game world connect to itself, as opposed to making something that is a hub that makes more sense. This just feels like a massive open Hyrule field that you need to traverse in order to go from place to place. And it almost feels like they were trying to make this game a Zelda game because Zelda sells more than Metroid. And it makes me feel like this was a directive from up high at Nintendo being like, yes, we know Metroid is a fan favorite, but we need to sell more copies of it if we're going to keep this series going in the long run. Make it more like Zelda. And it feels like they 100% did that. I said, also, what an epic fail for zero music in the desert area. Not even an eerie Metroid creepy desert overworld track, which would have been amazing, by the way, if they did some sort of just creepy Metroid sounding desert song. They couldn't even be bothered with that unless you get an amiibo and spend $30 to get the disc track in playing it, which don't even get me started on that. I said, I'll make my own music, damn it. So here's my 20 seconds of driving. Like it's kind of tongue in cheek when I'm trying to hum and sing along. Yes, Castlevania, but still, it was so desolate. There was no audio, no nothing. This is just, and you're just driving for what feels like miles and miles and miles through just desert dunes. I'm like, this is what the game has turned into. Why? Andre Segers, who is the founder of Game Explain, I can't stress enough what a fumble it was to have zero music in MP4's desert by default. It's absolutely transformative and injects so much life into the area that desperately needs it. Video first half, music. Second half, no music. All right, let's check it. 30 seconds. good. Badass music. This is all I was asking for. Feels like you're more engaged with the game. You're one with the bike. You're like, it's a badass Mad Max feeling. You know what this feels like? For those of you that have been playing games for a long time, it feels like the game glitched and that the music track just ran out and stopped playing. And it's supposed to be playing a song and it's just the audio track just broke. That's what it feels like when you're driving through a desert with no music. Like waiting for it to start back up and it just doesn't. The Kilted Cajun. Even the most minuscule of atmospheric tunes in the background would have made the desert more enjoyable. Put multiple, more dynamic tunes on the amiibo if you want, but leaving it out of the base game was a mistake. I think the backlash that Nintendo is receiving from this right now is so bad that I wouldn't be surprised if in a patch they do give music with this section and they remove the ability of needing or the necessity of needing the amiibo for it. Once, longtime friend of the channel, Rob Rule of Two Review, I haven't talked to him for a while, but he says he's a huge Metroid fan. He says, people have really been out here trying to convince you that Soul Valley and the Viola bike are bad, empty, boring, and unfun. Get the fuck out with those lies and malarkey, lol. That propaganda has no power when the truth is out here to be seen and experienced. This shit rocks, man. And I will say, hey, Rob, I'm happy that you're happy with this. But you need to understand going into this, Rob is a massive fanboy of Metroid in particular. There ain't nothing that they could have done where he would have gotten this game and been like, oh, I don't like it. So no matter what, positivity was going to be coming. Grum's quote tweets him and says, I think this would have gone over better a few years ago. People have pattern recognition now for open world. Large open spaces with nothing to do and only sparse content, even if pretty, just don't awe anymore. The tech is standard. The real question is, okay, what can I do in this vast space? And gameplay must answer. Coffee, Metroid Prime 4 biggest sin is it took 8 years to release and the game doesn't reflect the development time duration. Any fan of the series will have a great time with it, but it doesn't push the franchise forward in any significant way. The game is good, but I wouldn't use great or amazing to describe it. Metroid Dread is far superior, in my humble opinion, Metroid Prime 4. And I got to be honest, in my first 7 to 8 hours of playing it so far, wholeheartedly agree. Metroid Dread, I would rather be playing. That's not to say that Metroid Prime 4 is not good. It's just not as good as the feeling that I got when I was playing Metroid Dread. I will say the beginning section of Metroid Prime 4 was on par with Dread. It really was. It was good. There was some cringe dialogue that I could overlook and be like, okay, that's annoying, but whatever. That Miles dude is annoying, but whatever. I just want to play through the game and it's not too disrupting and it's fine. It's not as bad as I was worried about. It's not like Other M. Like it's cringe, but it's not overbearingly bad. But then you get to the bike and I'm just like, holy crap, the entire experience just massive tank. And it's shocking to me. I saw this from Day One Patch Kids and I wanted to highlight it because we were talking about this during the live stream. He said, after acquiring the Viola suit in Retro Studios Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, it had me thinking the bike should have been the suit. Kind of what David Jaffe and his team did with Kinetica on the PS2. The bike just feels weird in a Metroid game. And I almost wonder if Nintendo was concerned about copyrights and trademarks, because this is very similar to exactly what I was talking about when I was streaming, saying the bike just feels like a different game. If it was part of like her suit where she could morph ball or she could pull out a wheel and use that and drive fast with that, it would make sense. I wonder if Nintendo was concerned with copyrights and trademarks, but because they went this direction with it, it completely screwed the pooch on making it feel like it was part of the Metroid game. I still wouldn't have loved it, by the way, because it's still got the whole desert area that's just bland openness, silence. Even if Nintendo adds music, it still doesn't make it great because it still doesn't feel like Metroid when you're out there. It feels like you're playing like a mini game inside of a game that's not Metroid. And it takes you away from why you bought Metroid, or Metroid Prime, I should say, the first person shooter. And I want to stress, I don't think it's bad. I just think it doesn't fit. If it was its own separate game and that was what you do, you travel through the desert and stuff, I'd be like, okay, this is interesting. It's like a exploration game in the desert. It doesn't, it just, I don't know how else to say it. It just doesn't feel like a Metroid game when you do it. Everything's there. You got Samus, you got the enemy style, stuff like that. You can enter the areas and it turns back into Metroid Prime. But in the desert area, which feels like it's turning into a much bigger part of the game than anyone would have ever wanted, it is absolutely anything but that. Just a heads up, I saw this from Save You a Click Video Games. There is a downloadable 24-page manual for Metroid Prime 4 on the Japanese Nintendo website. The problem is it's in Japanese and there's no English version. If you want it physically, then you would also have to print it out yourself. It's just funny. If they actually cared, they would have done that and translated everything like that. But no, they came forward with it just being in Japanese. This is some of the playthrough of me when I was streaming it the other day. And this like the Metroid section was fine. It was cool. But then you get to this area here, and this is what I was talking about. It feels like F-Zero. You enter in a different area to practice on the bike. And then it's like 3 different trials that you have to go through and do objectives. And then you have to pass them to get your license to keep going with the bike. I'm like, what the fuck is this? This is not Metroid. What are we doing here? Like Chrono Trigger, there was one bike scene. And it was like a mini game that you could play and pick up and skip across part of the game if you wanted to save time going across the ruins. You didn't have to, but you could. This is like a massive part of the game where they knew it was going to be so big that they're like, you know what? We need an entire section to train the person how to use the bike to complete. And then it's like objectives complete. I'm like, it feels like I just want to race in F-Zero. This doesn't feel like Metroid. What are we doing here? What is this? But yeah, that is what my overview of Metroid feels like. And I got to be honest, I'm not thinking that it's going to get much better from here, but I'm still enjoying it for what it is. It's not a bad game, to be clear. And I don't want people to confuse my frustrations or my criticisms with saying it's a bad game. I'm just being honest. I feel like I'd be disingenuous if I was just eating it up and saying, yes, everything's great, it's perfect, and I will love no matter what Nintendo does. It's like, no, there are some parts of it where I'm just like, it just doesn't feel right. There's way too much time being put on the emphasis of this bike section. Not to mention, after I got the license, there was no clear like indication that I could leave. I thought I needed to go back because there was other areas that I couldn't get through, that I didn't have the weapons to be able to overcome. And I'm like, do I get those here? Do I need to leave? There's nothing telling me that I'm done here yet. So you spend so much time getting your license in here. And then once you do, it's not clear that you get it. And then you're just like, well, am I done here? Is there more? Because this is a massive 3-tower area. Like it's very, not that I'm asking for hand holding, but it's very confusing because it feels like it's holding your hand to a direction and then just lets you off. And it was bringing you to a place that you didn't need to be. It's very weird. It's very weird. But overall, it's a fun game and I'm looking forward to getting back to it, but it's not without its frustrations. But we'll see if it gets better. My concern is the bike is going to be a bigger part of the game as we go. And I really hope it's not, but we'll see. For now, I'll leave that there.